Terrarian in the Dungeon, Chapter 1, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. When I arrived in Danmachi, the first thought I had was how lucky I was, that I was given a whole damned set of metal tools and a small copper short sword that I could suck into my pocket space that I could see within my mind as a row of squares. But once I began to walk the streets of Orario and just to test my abilities I gathered up some trash wooden planks that were left behind on a job site for an abandoned building and attempted to build a Terraria workbench. I realized that I was going to need help to use this cheat. Going to craft a simple wooden workbench, I was only given a mental equivalent of a step-by-step guide on how to do it, and just because I had the wood didn't mean I had the tools to make said workbench. Even if the way it showed me how I made it didn't need nails, I could still use nails to make said workbench much easier. I need a backing, I muttered as I took in the 3 broken, not at all working benches, but as I went to break down the benches I couldn't at all. Like literally, I used some frankly crappy wood to build it, and I knew quite well that I could easily snap the thin wooden stubs with my hands or over my knee, but no matter how I tried to break down the broken bench it simply wouldn't break. Wait, let me try the pickaxe and axe, I muttered, and after taking out the tools I learned that literally anything I crafted operated on the Terraria logic of laughing at the idea of durability if it wasn't a consumable, but thankfully my tools seemed to bypass that very immutable state. Staring at the pile of now pristine wooden slabs in my inventory I brushed my hands over my face as I considered how I could work towards joining a forging or some kind of architecture familia, as I needed training on how to make my stuff. I couldn't just waste weeks if not months attempting to make a single workbench that I would give up on in less than a single week of being an adventurer. Fuck it. I am going to the guild and seeing if I can join any crafting familias. Would joining Hestia be a good idea? I mused before shaking my head, as although she was a goddess of architecture she was pinning after Belle, and frankly all their shenanigans seemed like a pain in the ass to get involved in, as I could feel in the depths of my soul that if could craft Terraria items then I could create boss summoning items, and I didn't need Belle making it even worse with his bullshit luck. Okay, Jake. You got 2 options, a crafting familia or an exploration based one that could help you gather the shit you need later on. I muttered before I realized that with the help of a crafting familia that I could just make the weapons that will draw the exploration familia to help me to begin with. Alright, let's get going to the guild, I said, assured of my plan to try and join a crafting familia. Thankfully I was sent on this merry adventure in a collared long-sleeve shirt and some blue jeans, so I didn't feel like too much of an outlier in the guild, but then again half of the people here were dressed in fantasy clothes, which went as far as the guild workers being in full business suits attired to the barbarian men in loincloths or Amazons wearing silk-like almost see-through clothes that hid nothing of their figure. Finally, I noticed one line was all but empty due to its receptionist being a beautiful red-haired wolf girl, had her cold eyes practically staring daggers at all the adventurers, so she was practically left alone with only a couple of adventurers quickly emptying their sacks of monster cores to get paid. Hoping I wasn't doing the wrong thing just walking up to the receptionist and having needed to set up an appointment or something, I entered her line, and after the last guy quickly scurried away with his money under her cold eyes, I asked her where I could find a crafting familia looking for new members. Hello. I am new to Orario and was wondering if you could point me towards a familia that is focused on crafting and recruiting. Hearing my question, the woman blinked, and her cold eyes softened a bit, taking me in. Ah, a blacksmith hopeful? She asked, looking at my arms in particular, and my face twitched as although I wasn't scrawny or fat, I certainly didn't have the corded muscle that came from a blacksmithing background. Ah, just crafting in general. I don't plan on trying to join Hephaestus or Goibniu, I just want a familia I can apply myself and learn a trade. I explained, not wanting to get stuck in the hyper-competitive familia of Hephaestus that was trying to earn their goddess's approval. There is a brand new goddess who has arrived here in Orario a few weeks ago and just got all her paperwork set up and got a building for her familia that fits your criteria perfectly, and best of all, the goddess is rated to be among the more reasonable ones. Yes, her name was Seshid, the guild receptionist explained, and I nodded in understanding. Well, seeing as you aren't formally signing up as an adventurer yet, here's a small map to her workshop she has set up. Come back when you decide to jump into the death trap that is the dungeon. Ah, now I remember who she was Ace's advisor back when she was younger. Rose Fanet, I believe her name was. Alright, thank you for your time, I said, respectfully nodding to her, and then I got out of the much more filled line as Rose had softened up when she was talking to me, and then I literally saw a couple people actually leave her line as the scarlet-haired dog girl turned back on her icy persona and began taking people's monster drops again. Leaving the guild, I looked down on my map and saw that at the center of the map was the guild building, and across the map were several buildings of note like Hephaestus's shops, Loki's Familia Manor, Freya Familia Manor, and just generally a number of Orario landmarks, and smack dab on the other side of the damned city was a large X that supposedly Seshet was living in. Well, let's hope I don't get lost. I thought, and what do you know, I did just that. As the business district the goddess that was recommended to me was a damned maze of small alleys, and finally, I began stopping people for directions for Seshet's Perch, which was the name of the hobbyist store the goddess was running. Oh, that nice goddess, yeah, she is running a shop just down there and into the alley with the massive bushes in front of it. It kind of hides it, but she has a heavy smell always following her which wards off people attempting to join her familia. The guy I was questioning explained, and my face twitched as I thought the goddess was some dumpy nasty goddess of filth or something, as I didn't know jack about the goddess named Seshet nor what her divine symbol looked like. A couple minutes later I arrived at the so-called hobby shop and could only deadpan so hard that my damned eyebrows hurt. This is a fucking dispensary. I cursed seeing the literal marijuana plant bushes in front of Seshet's store, not to mention the thick, skunk smell that came from all the weed being smoked around here. Wait. This is a hippie hobby shop, no wonder no one would join this familia. I bemoaned at wasting the entire day, as even if Seshet was the perfect goddess, if she wanted her familia members to have nothing to do with the dungeon for its violence and harsh vibes, then no one in Orario would join her, as the whole damned city revolved around a death trap. Let's go try the guild again, I muttered as I turned around, not wanting to put my life and future into a goddess who was probably only a step away from Soma. Ho, I didn't believe mortals gave up so easily. A voice reached my ears even a couple dozen meters from the goddess's store, and I realized I may have insulted or worse gathered her interest with how I clearly was looking for her shop, but then after some thinking and muttering turned away to leave the way I had come. Lady Seshet, I merely turned the wrong way, please excuse me and have a wonderful day, I said, bowing towards the building, and only received a throaty chuckle in response before her velvet voice reached me again. Come in, lost child, not of this world, I wish to see your fate up close. Hearing her words, I was this close to sprinting off, but I decided fuck it. I was already dropped into this world with no warning. The worst she could do is tell other gods I was foreign to this world, and by that time I could flee Orario and take up some apprenticeship in another city where gods and goddesses aren't on every other street corner. Wordlessly I approached her building, and as I closed in, I saw how much of a marvel it was, and from the bare-bones knowledge I had of acoustics, I saw the building had tiny pipes built into the brickwork that would probably carry sound or something. Not to mention, despite the other buildings looking rather run down, I saw practically every stone that made up the building was polished, and even the mortar that held together the building was of a pleasing ivory color and looked to be smooth to the touch. I just focused on the marijuana plants in the front of the building, and I kind of felt a bit bad about it now. I see realization and regret in your eyes, how quaint. The voice purred, and it truly was a purr. When I entered the darkened front room, I saw, like a queen would overlook their subjects, was a heart-stopping beauty with mocha skin and more importantly sharply angled cat ears atop her ebony tresses of hair that was streaked with some gold strands that broke apart the almost midnight black hair. As I regathered myself from the sight of the goddess, I noticed that I couldn't smell the weed at all from the inside, and seeing me smell, the goddess merely tittered again, and I saw a black and go.